Hi, everybody. So I started a group called Rexdale Lab in North Etobicoke. I work there full-time at Pathways to Education, a national nonprofit, working with youth. So basically the beginnings of how this started was, I've been there for over 3 years, almost 4 now. And I thought to myself, I've seen familiar faces and social service workers, individuals and residents frequently at different events and workshops. What can we do? What's a new initiative? What's kind of needed? What's kind of missing? Started asking a lot of questions, and I just sent out a letter to some of the people that I know well, and asked them what would it be like if we could start a new initiative, a new group, creative, looking at new ways of thinking, kind of thinking outside the box or stretching the box, doing something that's not redundant, at the same time trying to be, a lot of things, shifting ideologies and grassroots and community and cross-sector, all those kind of buzzwords. So what can we do to kind of bring together all these passionate people and do something that's new? It kind of stemmed out of the NAPs, so the Neighborhood Action Partnership groups that the city ran, and still runs, I think, as now, but I haven't kept up with it. They still meet, so they have a city, like a community development officer that liaises with the communities, and so that group, it had its moments, successfully doing a lot of great things, and sometimes ebbs and flows of people coming and going, life, people coming and going in different jobs. So coming out of that, I thought, well, that's not really addressing some of the issues that we want to talk about. It's a little more bureaucratic, it's a little more slow, and what else can we do? So I invited all these people, individuals from Humber College, corporate social responsibility at Woodbine Entertainment Group, residents, everybody that I knew that I developed relationships with over the first 2 years of me working in Rexdale. And so that's how we pitched it. We began and we kind of met for the first time and brainstormed some of the challenges and issues and areas that are happening. And I'll go through all of the different things that we kind of did, the projects and the initiatives and the discussions. And I'm going to give these little kind of lessons, and I'm going to read off my phone here because I just made this presentation. So be relevant. So whenever you want to approach a project or mission, you want to make sure that you're answering the questions, like what are your motives and what are your interests? So what do you want to do and how are you going to do it? What kind of skills do you have? What can really drive change? And obviously it's the people. People have their own self-interest, but if you want to align it with a specific cause or a specific organization, or if you want to contribute in some way, you want to make sure you also address what your motives are. For example, like if you wanted to help with a poverty initiative, if you haven't experienced poverty, your relevancy is going to be a little less, but it's not that your skills or what you can contribute isn't worthwhile, right? So you have to kind of reassess and check to see, as an individual, how relevant are you, and then also as a group or an organization or ad hoc group, or what do you want to do? So with Rexdale Lab, I kind of wanted it to be an open-ended, decentralized leadership framework concept. So we love having people come into the community as well if they wanted to do some sort of a workshop or initiate a project if it's realistic and meaningful and if it's the right time. We're more than welcome. We're more than happy to kind of initiate that. Howard from Think Fresh Group has come down and helped us out and facilitated amazing design thinking, concept process workshops. So kind of connecting those dots and being relevant is really, really important. Some of the partners and some of the people at the table, we have about 45 members and about a dozen consistent people, and then even fewer people who commit on a consistent basis. And I'll talk about some of the challenges later, but some great people from all over, and then we have a great group of a few residents who live in the area who also come out. So our mission, this is just our first initial mission that we've created. It might evolve. Rexdale Lab amplifies, advocates, and engages the community in North Etobicoke to create the future we want through interaction, community events, and projects. We'll talk more about some of those events and projects. So our vision is a community that reflects action, embraces diversity and innovation to create a sense of well-being, and our aim is to be the best community to live, work, and play in. So some of the things that we have done, we participated in 1,000 Dinners TO and really addressed what are some of the gaps and needs of the communities. So some of the concepts and questions that we wanted to tackle were how do we engage youth, what's missing, what are some of our assets. We also did a 101-day event. Those two were citywide. Have you folks heard of those two events? They happened in December and in June. Then we had a community forum in December, and we had a group of youth, and we kind of delved into what is violence and what's going on, and how do we build our community. And throughout all of these different events, and the bottom right one is it's the Toronto Poverty Reduction Strategy, one of the consultations in North Etobicoke that happened. So a lot of interesting conversations and just getting out into the community to engage with new people and get new people on board. And then the projects one was, just another community, the community forum that Howard also came out to. We had new ways of facilitating and introducing new tools such as design thinking and trying to engage in those discussions. There were so many, so much chart paper that I have to still type out. But documenting is a very key thing, and I've created a WordPress to kind of capture that. So documenting is really important because one of the other challenge areas with the NAPs was that people would be coming and going, and they wouldn't have any kind of foundation from which to just jump in and dive in because there was nothing there. There was no documentation. There was no documentation. There was no way to kind of just catch up on what was going on. So documentation is really important so that people can come and go and kind of know where everything is and it's in one place. So I was trying to address all of these things that were all the gaps that were from the NAP so that we could try to do better next time. So this is just a simple model. There are a lot of great frameworks and tools, and of course you don't really want to replicate. You kind of want to just apply it in your context, because each context is unique. Whether you're participating or interacting or facilitating, you have to really adapt and modify tools and frameworks. So introducing new tools and frameworks is definitely a challenge because we realized that one of the things that were really lacking was kind of this communal sense of civic engagement in North Etobicoke, because I also used to work in South Etobicoke, and if I had to compare, the civic engagement in South Etobicoke was much greater because they have a very long history of being very civically active and present, and you can see it and it's in your face. And the community health center is older, and those kind of different factors. So it's just a simple kind of process. You're amidst the community for a period of time. I was there for two and a half years. I have a background working with youth and community health centers, and I'm very interested in grassroots. I've worked in activism circles. I've worked in nonprofit. I've worked in governmental spaces. So I'm a mishmash of everything. I feel like I never belong to any specific space. So you build that relationship and you kind of develop those skills that you need, especially if you're a new person. One of the main things you want to do is listen, right? You want to listen, you want to understand people's needs, help create platforms. So I'm a big fan of building bridges and supporting and what can we do and what's out there as opposed to just problem defining. So I think we tend to just problem define for far too long, which is fine too though, as long as you feel like it's not a process that's slowing down, as long as you feel like there's momentum happening. Designing a facilitation process, whether it's using a framework or tool or just making do with what exists, is also very powerful. Because anyone can just go in to get kind of a facilitation certificate that costs hundreds of or $1,000. However, there are participatory just forms of engaging in decision making. Examples from all over the world. So one of the more common ones that I give as an example are the Zapatistas. You've always heard of the Zapatista movement. So they're a village in Mexico, a kind of several villages, and they go by different names. And so I was reading one book about it, and they just talked about one of the villages had to make a decision, and some of the issues they tackle are poverty, the main one poverty, and their land being taken away. So one of the things that they do for just making decisions, if they had to make a decision about something, they would spend days trying to talk and deliberate about it. That's their participatory method. They make sure that everyone gets heard, everyone talks about it, everyone goes home, everyone comes back, and things are really, really thought out. So I know we tend to live in a time where it's, like, this is me thinking, this is me doing nothing, right? Like, it's the same thing, and sometimes we don't just sit because it feels like we're not doing anything, and we don't think, and we're not deliberating. What are my blind spots? What's going on with our group? Asking real questions about. So, what do you think was a fundamental challenge for us in the past 3 months, or what question do you actually want to ask within this group or project today? Like, what is that real question that's on your mind that you're deliberating? So not just coming to a group and just go. This is my motive. This is what I want to do, and I want to help people. But then I forget all these other elements of it. So making sure that there is a training process and asking for advice. Sometimes we forget the skills at the table. Oh, this person has a connection to Humber College. Well, we don't want to go all these other different avenues. They will set those direct interactions up that are quicker, efficient, meaningful. They have the trust there. They have the years of experience and trust already there. And sometimes you don't know that until you have those conversations. Documenting is very, very important as well, so that you feel like you're building something and it's visual. I think most people are, I was deliberating whether I should have done a visual presentation, but apparently most people are visual, like, learners and engagers. So I was like, I really don't want to do a boring presentation, so I'll add some pictures. And then it goes on and on. But this isn't obviously a set model. You can Google, like, grassroots communities all around the world and take a little bit of everything and say, oh, I want to try this. Will this work? What do you think? So I'm kind of that kind of patchwork kind of worker, because I see value in everything, and I don't think I need one tool that we hope is the be all and end all. This is innovation is going to help us. I don't know. Like, if nobody adopts innovation. So this is kind of one of the things that we brainstorm. So there's a lot of issues, a lot of areas, gaps. Whether it's institutional, whether it's internal, whether it's resource-wise. There's a lot of housing, youth leadership, transportation, space, health and well-being. It's a long list, and obviously one of the other things that I always advocate is you have to remind myself you can't be everything to everyone. There's so many issues out there. You really got to try to hone in on what it is your group wants, or what it is that your community needs or wants. And you can only find out if you actually have a meaningful discussion and meet them where they are. So how? That's always a big question, because there's 1,000 different ways, and there's never a right way. So reflecting back on the past year of Registered Lab, there have been a lot of challenges, and some of them include commitment, and I think everyone can relate: consistent meetings, busy lives, taking initiative, too many needs, low civic engagement, silo mentality. So there are challenges. However, just being mindful of what your aims and intentions are, and where you want to go, or at least what have you created so far that's been meaningful and impactful for those involved, and then trying to address these as you can. So some of our goals, and I think everyone can relate to some of the things that I've shared. Bringing people together, increasing networking, increasing partnerships, local solutions, and using their expertise. Sometimes we forget that if we come into a group, we have all these expertise and tools at the table, but how can we really share that and interact and exchange? Because we can learn as much as we can teach. Increase interactions. That's a big thing too. Just simply interacting, getting people to come out and making that visible. So in some communities, it's not visible and it's not necessarily known. Like, people will congregate, here, and they'll interact. They'll congregate and eat and do and just talk informally. But how can we amplify? How can we create platforms for people to feel supported? Increase awareness, which is kind of work, and amplify ideas. Some of the outcomes I mentioned: we have members from 14 different organizations and businesses. We've met 11 times so far, 3 events, 22 different partnerships. We've increased our Twitter followers. Apparently that's a metric, I guess. Increased interest from downtown groups and people who are very interested in issues that are all over the city, right? Something like poverty or racism or violence. There are a lot of intersectional issues, and they don't just exist in single neighborhoods. It's just that some neighborhoods are more amplified than others as well. And increased discussions around unique needs. So obviously poverty in one area is not going to be the same as poverty in another area. It could be poverty in terms of employment, it could be poverty in terms of food security. the Rexdale Hub, and this is one of the places where we have met, and a lot of organizations are there. The agencies like Rexdale Legal Clinic, Microskills, Leave Out Violence, Albany Neighborhood Services, a lot of other groups. My last kind of words of advice, everything we already have, and sometimes we're always seeking these tools, like I have to learn this new social innovation tool, or this new framework, or this new thing, and try and like apply it or replicate it or bring it here. Sometimes we forget that we also have a lot of assets at the table, and that goes back to, we problem define a little too much. What are our assets and what are our connections and what is our goal with that? So if I needed to fundraise for an initiative, then what are the networks that we already have and how can we sustain those relationships and build those relationships to maybe create, a sponsorship deck or to outreach or to promote or to bring this certain area of expertise in to facilitate something new. So kind of doing your asset map is really, really important, and that's something that we're going to be doing moving forward to help, to maybe we could provide like workshops for people to come out and have a different mode of engagement as opposed to just doing events and projects when maybe the capacity or the skill or the resources or their time is not in balance with our motives as a group. So really reflecting on those things, and really just learning from your failures, I guess. Sometimes we tend to have a negative conversation, so sparking a vision of possibility, reframing things, and always checking your own blind spots and how we get stuck in our habits of thinking and our kind of siloed mentality. We're all products of systems, of bureaucracies and ideologies and all those isms. So it's typical to kind of detach, especially if you want to enter into a new space to create a project or discussion. I think I went over time, but that's pretty much all I had to say. So right now what we're working on is we're doing a mental health initiative in terms of what are the, I'm not part of that group, so we have, so one of the ways we work is that leadership's decentralized, so if you have an idea, you can just lead it, and anyone who wants to join at any capacity, so no one is expected to do certain things, certain tasks. You volunteer for whatever it is you want to do. So if you only want to if you only want to create a flyer, or if you want to outreach, or if you want to connect this person with that person, whatever it is you can contribute to a project, you can. And then there'll be a few leaders who spearhead it. So we have a mental health project that we're doing with social service providers to find out where they're at in terms of if they need anything. We're partnering with Humber Media and Tech, Media and Communications faculty to do success stories, because one of the issues that came up was the negative stereotypes and the perceptions the community has about themselves, and obviously the greater city of Toronto has about our community and any community really. So we want to reverse that and kind of capture stories of triumph and resiliency and make it a multimedia project, and also incorporate employment for youth. So it could be high school youth who want to go and be mentored by students already at Humber and engage in that way. So that's one of the things we want to do. And then we're going to do an asset map, and we're always shifting. I'm a really trial and error kind of person. I don't like to prescribe and say, this is what we're going to do. And that was one of the challenges too, in that is that people expect, there's always going to be members who expect it or want to be told, do this, go do this, we're going to do this. And then there are members who come with ideas and they want you to do them. But I work full time and I volunteer and I'm a board member and I need to eat and sleep and do all this other stuff. So it's not the easiest thing, and it's hard to always say no to an idea, and sometimes it's hard for any of us to say no to something. But it's also, how do you empower people to take that idea themselves? And sometimes people aren't ready to take their own ideas, off the table, and that's fine. You can't be everything to everybody. So knowing that and balancing your where you're coming from is really, really important. Being realistic with yourself, because I know we all have this deep desire and we're passionate about some cause. So we just have to find out what is that happy medium that we can do good, and also, create that environment where that interaction is meaningful and healthy and addresses all those other things too, so that we're not burnt out, we're not redundant, we're not recreating those systems of oppression that have already impacted the people that we want to do good for. like for example, nonprofits used to be very radical spaces, and now they're bureaucratic, right? So because they're funded by systems that oppress people in the first place. So how do you navigate those kind of difficult systemic issues? And same with racism, like they're very layered and rooted and deep. So it's not a one-stop fix, but we can definitely empower and inspire through documentation and through projects. So as the gist of that, I could talk for days, but we don't want to. Any questions?